They said no policy could be bent for a good deed. So when the eviction papers landed, Lauren knew the system had won and her family was out on the street. But as she watched her furniture get tagged, a shadow fell over the apartment. Not a cloud, but a $10 million black utility helicopter dropping onto the public park next door. The man exiting didn't offer charity. He offered a terrifying, unconditional brand of justice that would destroy everyone who dared to make her life policy. Before we go deeper into the story, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We bring exciting stories each day. Tomorrow's promises to be more thrilling. You want to know what I think, Mrs. Hayes? I think you're exactly where people like you belong, on the street. Richard Thorne, landlord 63, slicked back silver hair, tailored navy suit that cost more than Lauren's monthly rent, ripped the eviction appeal in half and dropped the pieces at her feet. You missed your interview. That's not my problem. You had one chance to make your rent and you threw it away. Now you're begging for extensions like some charity case. This is business, not a soup kitchen. I was saving a child's life. Lauren Hayes, 32, widowed, exhausted, still wearing the same wrinkled blazer from 3 days ago, could barely keep her voice steady. Thorne grabbed the framed photo from his desk, his family at their vacation home in the Hamptons, and set it down deliberately, making his point. Not my problem. You're out in 48 hours. Pack your things, take your sob stories somewhere else, and get that kid of yours ready to switch schools. Again. Lauren stood there, shaking, humiliated, staring at 3 years of perfect rent payments, of working double shifts, of sacrificing everything to stay afloat, all of it meaningless. But 72 hours later, a helicopter landed in the small public park adjoining Lauren's yard. The man who stepped out wasn't a landlord. He wasn't a lawyer. He was Gabriel Knox, the man the entire city feared, and he came to destroy everyone who had forgotten the difference between a policy and a life. 72 hours earlier, Tuesday, 9:47 a.m., Lauren's phone alarm had been screaming for 3 minutes. Sterling Holdings regional manager interview. 10:15 a.m., no late arrivals accepted. 28 minutes. Lauren yanked on the charcoal blazer, one size too big, bought from Goodwill, still professional enough to pass. Grabbed her portfolio. On her nightstand, a photo of her late husband, Daniel, holding their newborn son before the accident that took everything. I'm going to make it, Danny. Today changes everything. Lauren burst through her apartment door into the October cold. Riverside Avenue was packed with morning traffic. The bus stop was 3 blocks away. She could see the Route 14 approaching in the distance, brake lights flashing at the intersection. Then she saw her. The girl crumpled against the brick wall outside the pharmacy. Young, maybe 12, 13, dark hair matted with blood, expensive school uniform torn and soaked crimson. A backpack with designer initials lay beside her, the contents scattered, blood pooling beneath her left side. People walked past. A woman in yoga clothes glanced, kept walking. 2 construction workers didn't even slow down. Nobody stopped. The girl's hand moved weakly, reaching toward nothing. Help! Lauren checked her phone. 9:51 a.m. 24 minutes until the interview. The interview that would pay off the debt, keep her son in his school, save the apartment. The girl's eyes fluttered open, striking, unusual gray-green eyes, and locked onto Lauren's. Please. Lauren dropped her portfolio. She fell to her knees, hands moving through rapid assessment. Former EMT training kicked in automatically. Sweetheart, can you hear me? Can you tell me your name? Pulse rapid and weak, skin cold, clammy, shock setting in. Torn fabric across the abdomen revealing a deep laceration, possibly from glass or metal. Active bleeding. This wasn't a fall. This was trauma. Lauren pulled off her blazer, pressed it against the wound. 911, what's your emergency? This is Lauren Hayes, former EMT. I have an unresponsive minor, approximately 12 years old, with severe abdominal trauma and active hemorrhaging. She's going into shock. I need an ambulance at Riverside and Oak, northwest corner, outside Morton's Pharmacy. Ambulance is 6 minutes out. 6 minutes. With this kind of bleeding, 6 minutes could be the difference between life and death. A businessman stopped. Is she your jacket? Now. Lauren wrapped it around the girl's shoulders, fighting hypothermia, maintained pressure on the wound. Blood seeped through her blazer, warm and slick between her fingers. Ma'am, what's your name? The girl's lips moved. Mia Knox. I'm Lauren. You're going to be okay. I'm not leaving you. Lauren's phone lit up on the pavement beside her by 9:58 a.m. The bus pulled up to the stop 1 block away, opened its doors. The driver looked down the street, waiting. Lauren didn't look. The doors closed. The bus drove away. The ambulance arrived 8 minutes later, sirens wailing. What have we got? The lead paramedic, badge-reading Martinez, knelt beside Lauren. 12-year-old female, severe abdominal laceration, likely penetrating trauma. Shock symptoms, weak pulse, rapid breathing. Approximately 11 minutes since I found her. I've maintained direct pressure and monitored vitals. Martinez looked at Lauren, at the blood covering her hands, her arms, her ruined blazer, at the calm, professional focus in her eyes. You saved this kid's life, seriously. Another 15 minutes and we'd be calling this in as a fatality. The ambulance doors slammed shut. Sirens screamed into the distance. Lauren stood alone on the sidewalk, blood drying on her hands. Her portfolio soaked and ruined on the concrete, her phone exploding with notifications. Sarah, HR, Sterling Holdings. Mrs. Hayes, your interview was scheduled for 10:15. It is now 10:23. Mr. Davidson has another appointment. Are you coming? Sarah. Mrs. Hayes? Sarah. I'm sorry, but we've moved forward with other candidates. The interview had started 8 minutes ago. Lauren walked to Sterling Holdings anyway. 7th floor, glass doors, marble reception desk. The receptionist looked up, saw Lauren, saw the blood, and her expression froze. Can I help you? I'm Lauren Hayes. I had an interview at 10:15 with Mr. Davidson. There was an emergency. A child was... The receptionist was already shaking her head. Mr. Davidson left for his 11 o'clock. The position has been filled. But if I go just explain, I'm sorry. Good luck with your search. The conversation was over. Lauren stood there, numb, staring at the blood still wet on her hands, at the ruined blazer that was supposed to change everything. Lauren's neighbor, Mrs. Chen, was waiting anxiously at the building entrance. Lauren, oh my God, what happened? Is that blood? Lauren explained while scrubbing blood from her shaking hands at the kitchen sink. The water ran red, then pink, then clear. An email notification chimed. From Sterling Holdings HR. Subject, interview status update. Dear Mrs. Hayes, your failure to attend your scheduled interview on October 3rd without prior notice or communication has resulted in your removal from consideration for the regional manager position. We wish you luck in your future endeavors. Lauren had $847 on checking, 1 month behind on rent. Final notice already posted. Mrs. Chen grabbed her hand. This is insane. You were saving a child's life. You call them back. You explain. I tried. Then you go higher. You fight this. With what leverage? Lauren's voice cracked. I'm a broke widow with a 10-year-old son. I'm exactly what they think I am. Someone who can be dismissed. But Lauren had to try. Thorn Property Management. Lauren sat in a leather chair that cost more than 3 months of her rent, still wearing the same clothes from yesterday, the blazer now clean, but the bloodstains permanently set. Richard Thorne sat behind a mahogany desk the size of Lauren's kitchen table. Law degree from Yale on the wall, photo with the city mayor, a crystal paperweight engraved with excellence in real estate. Mrs. Hayes, 5 minutes. Mr. Thorne, I'm appealing the eviction notice. I missed my interview because you missed your rent. That's the only fact that matters here. If you just let me explain. Thorne pulled out the ledger, turned it toward her. You're 43 days past due, that is fact. The lease states that failure to pay within 30 days results in eviction proceedings. You sign this document. Lauren pulled out her phone, opened the news article already published. I have proof. The hospital confirmed I saved a critically injured child. The paramedics said she would have died. Personal emergencies do not supersede legal obligations, Mrs. Hayes. You had a choice. Attend your interview, secure your income, or assist a stranger. You chose. That choice has consequences. Lauren felt tears burning behind her eyes. Lauren's alarm hadn't stopped screaming for 3 full minutes before she finally slammed her hand down on it. The red numbers glared back. 9:47 a.m., 28 minutes. She threw on the charcoal blazer, one size too big, shoulders sagging, bought from the Goodwill on Maple Street for $12. It was professional enough, it had to be. Her portfolio sat on the kitchen table next to a half-eaten bowl of cereal her 10-year-old son, Jake, had abandoned before the school bus came. On the counter, pinned under a coffee mug, the final notice from Thorne Property Management. Bold red letters, vacate within 14 days. This interview was everything. Regional manager at Sterling Holdings, $58,000 a year. Benefits, stability, the kind of job that paid off debt, kept Jake in his school, kept them off the street. Lauren grabbed her keys and ran. Riverside Avenue was chaos. Morning commuters flooding the sidewalks, car horns, the smell of exhaust and coffee from the corner shop. The bus stop was 3 blocks away, and she could see the Route 14 idling at the light. Then she turned the corner onto Oak Street. The girl was crumpled against the brick wall outside Morton's Pharmacy like a broken doll. Maybe 12, 13 years old. Dark hair matted with blood. Expensive private school uniform. Navy blazer, gray skirt, torn and soaked crimson. A designer backpack with gold initials lay beside her, contents scattered across the pavement. Blood pooled beneath her, spreading slowly across the concrete. People walked past. A woman in yoga clothes glanced, pulled out her phone, kept walking. 2 men in construction vests didn't even slow down. The girl's hand twitched. Her lips moved. Help! Lauren checked her phone. 9:51 a.m. 24 minutes until the interview. 24 minutes until everything changed. The girl's eyes fluttered open, striking gray-green, unusual, unforgettable, and locked onto Lauren's. Please. Lauren's portfolio hit the ground. She dropped to her knees, hands moving through rapid assessment. Former EMT training from 8 years ago, before Jake was born, before Daniel died, before everything fell apart. It all came flooding back. Sweetheart, can you hear me? What's your name? Pulse rapid, thready, skin cold, clammy. Shock setting in fast. The girl's blazer was torn across the abdomen, revealing a deep laceration. Glass, metal, something sharp, active bleeding. This wasn't a simple fall. This was trauma. Lauren ripped off her blazer and pressed it against the wound. 911, what's your emergency? This is Lauren Hayes, former EMT. I have an unresponsive minor, approximately 12 years old, severe abdominal trauma with active hemorrhaging. She's going into shock. I need an ambulance at Riverside and Oak, northwest corner, outside Morton's Pharmacy. Now. Ambulance is 6 minutes out, ma'am. 6 minutes. With bleeding like this, 6 minutes was the line between life and death. A businessman stopped. Is she... Your jacket. Now. He stripped it off. Lauren wrapped it around the girl's shoulders, fighting hypothermia. She repositioned carefully, maintaining pressure on the wound. Blood seeped through the blazer, warm and slick, against her palms. What's your name, sweetheart? The girl's voice was barely a whisper. Mia. Mia Knox. I'm Lauren. You're going to be okay, Mia. I promise. I'm not leaving you. Lauren's phone lit up on the pavement. 9:58 a.m. The bus pulled up 1 block away. The doors hissed open. The driver waited, scanning the street. Lauren didn't look up. The doors closed. The bus drove away. The ambulance arrived 8 minutes later, sirens splitting the morning air. What have we got? The lead paramedic, Martinez according to his badge, knelt beside Lauren. 12-year-old female, penetrating abdominal trauma, likely glass or shrapnel. Shock symptoms, weak pulse, tachypnea, approximately 11 minutes since discovery. I've maintained direct pressure and monitored vitals. Martinez looked at Lauren, at the blood covering her hands, her arms, her ruined blazer, at the steady, professional calm in her eyes. You saved this kid's life. Dead serious. Another 15 minutes, we're calling the coroner. The ambulance doors slammed. The sirens wailed into the distance, carrying Mia Knox away. Lauren stood alone on the sidewalk, blood drying on her hands, her portfolio soaked in ruin, her phone exploding with notifications. Sarah Chen, Sterling Holdings HR. Mrs. Hayes, your interview was scheduled for 10:15. It is now 10:23. Mr. Davidson has moved on to his next appointment. The interview had started 8 minutes ago. Lauren walked to Sterling Holdings anyway. 7th floor, glass doors, marble everything. The receptionist looked up, saw the blood, and her face went pale. I'm Lauren Hayes. I had a 10:15 with Mr. Davidson. There was an emergency. A child was dying. I had to. The receptionist was already shaking her head. Mr. Davidson has left for his 11 OM. The position has been filled. I'm sorry. The window had closed. Lauren made it home by noon. Her hands were still shaking as she unlocked the apartment door. Jake wouldn't be back from school until 3:30. She had time to fall apart in private. She stripped off the blood-stained clothes, stuffed them in a trash bag, and stood under the shower until the water ran cold. When she finally checked her phone, the email was waiting. From Sterling Holdings Human Resources. Subject, interview status, position filled. Dear Mrs. Hayes, your failure to attend your scheduled interview on October 3rd without prior notice has resulted in your removal from consideration for the regional manager position. Sterling Holdings requires punctuality and professionalism from all candidates. We wish you success in your future endeavors. Lauren's fingers trembled as she dialed the number at the bottom of the email. 3 rings. Sterling Holdings, Sarah speaking. This is Lauren Hayes. I just received an email about my interview this morning. Please, if I could just explain what happened. Mrs. Hayes, Mr. Davidson has already made his decision. A 12-year-old girl was bleeding out on the street. I'm a former EMT. I had to stop. The paramedics said she would have died if I hadn't. I understand that must have been difficult. Sarah's voice was flat, rehearsed. But Mr. Davidson can't make exceptions based on dramatic excuses. Emergencies happen to everyone. Successful candidates find ways to manage them. Dramatic excuses. I have hospital documentation, news coverage, the girl's family. The position has been filled, Mrs. Hayes. I'm sorry. Have a good day. The line went dead. Lauren sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the phone in her hand. $58,000 a year. Benefits, stability, gone. At 6:15 that evening, she heard the sound of paper sliding under her door. She knew what it was before she picked it up. Final eviction notice. Thorn Property Management. Tenant, Lauren Hayes, Unit 2B. You are hereby notified that due to failure to remit rent payment for 43 days, you must vacate the premises within 48 hours. Failure to comply will result in legal action and forcible removal. No further appeals will be considered. At the bottom, in Richard Thorne's precise handwriting, business is business, Mrs. Hayes. Lauren folded the notice carefully and slid it into the kitchen drawer. Beneath the stack of unopened medical bills from Daniel's final hospital stay. Jake came home at 7:30 from his friend Marcus's house, backpack slung over one shoulder, talking about the science project they were building together. Mom, can Marcus come over this weekend? We need to finish the volcano. Lauren smiled. It felt like her face might crack. We'll see, sweetheart. We might be moving soon. Moving, like to a new apartment? Something like that. It'll be an adventure. Jake's face lit up. Cool. Can I have my own room this time? Maybe, baby. We'll see. That night, after Jake fell asleep, Lauren sat at the kitchen table with a notebook and a calculator. She had $847 in checking. Rent was $1,200. The security deposit on any new place would be at least $2,000. Her credit was destroyed from Daniel's medical debt. The math didn't work. It had never worked. She thought about Mia Knox's gray-green eyes, the way her hand had reached out, the word that barely escaped her lips. Please. Lauren had made the only choice she could live with. But Richard Thorne and Sterling Holdings had made theirs too. And in their world, saving a life was just a dramatic excuse. The black sedan pulled up to Lawrence Street at 9:40 Thursday morning. It didn't belong in this neighborhood. The car was a Mercedes S-Class, gleaming obsidian, tinted windows that reflected the cracked sidewalks and peeling paint of the apartment complex like a dark mirror. Lauren was packing Jake's clothes into cardboard boxes when she heard the knock. 3 sharp raps. Precise. Professional. She opened the door. The man standing on her doorstep wore a suit that cost more than 6 months of her rent. Charcoal gray, perfectly tailored, Italian leather shoes polished to a mirror shine. He was tall, broad-shouldered, late 30s, with the kind of face that had seen things most people only read about in crime novels. Mrs. Lauren Hayes? Yes? My name is Luca Moretti. I work for Gabriel Knox. He reached into his jacket. Lauren flinched and pulled out a business card. Heavy stock, embossed lettering. No job title. Just a name and a phone number. Lauren's stomach dropped. Mia, is she? She's fine. Completely recovered. The doctor said if you hadn't stopped, if you hadn't known what to do. Luca's expression softened slightly. She wouldn't have made it to the hospital alive. Mr. Knox asked me to deliver his gratitude personally. He reached into his jacket again and produced an envelope. Thick, cream-colored paper. Inside, a check. Lauren looked down at it. The amount line was blank. So was the signature line. Just her name printed at the top and the Knox family crest watermarked in the corner. Fill in whatever amount you need, Mrs. Hayes. Mr. Knox insists. Lauren stared at the check. She thought about the eviction notice in the kitchen drawer. The 47 hours she had left. Jake's face when she told him they'd have to leave Marcus and his school behind. The $847 that wouldn't even cover a week in a motel. She tore the check in half, then in half again. She handed the pieces back to Luca. I saved a child, Mr. Moretti. I don't accept blood money. Tell Mr. Knox his daughter is safe and recovering. That's the only payment I need. Luca stood there frozen, the torn pieces of the check in his palm. He delivered payoffs to judges, politicians, cops. He'd seen people take money they swore they'd never touch. He'd watched principles crumble for far less than what Lauren was refusing. Mrs. Hayes, with all due respect, you don't understand who I understand perfectly. Your employer is Gabriel Knox. I know exactly who that is, and I know exactly where money like this comes from. Lauren's voice was steady, but her hands were shaking. I did what any decent person would do. I'm not looking for a reward. Luca studied her face, the exhaustion, the fear barely hidden beneath the pride, the boxes visible behind her in the apartment. Mr. Knox will want to know why you refused. Tell him some things aren't for sale. Lauren closed the door. Luca stood on the doorstep for a long moment, staring at the torn check in his hand. Then he pulled out his phone. It's me. You're not going to actually leave this, but she refused. No, I'm serious. She tore it up. Said she doesn't accept blood money. I don't know, boss, but I think you need to meet this woman yourself. If you can't stand systems that punish good people while rewarding the heartless, hit subscribe. People like Richard Thorne, who value profit over human decency, won't. Lauren spent Friday packing the life she'd built into boxes that once held canned goods from the food bank. Jake's toys, Daniel's military photos, the cheap dishes from the dollar store that had somehow survived 3 years of single motherhood. 24 hours left. Jake was at school. She told him they were moving to a better place. The lie tasted like ash in her mouth, but she couldn't tell a 10-year-old that in 24 hours, they'd be sleeping in her 15-year-old Honda Civic in a Walmart parking lot. She wrapped the framed photo of Daniel in newspaper, his dress blues, his smile back when the future still felt possible. Before the deployment, before the IED, before the medical bills that bankruptcy couldn't erase. Her phone rang, unknown number. Mrs. Hayes, this is Jessica from Riverside Community Shelter. We received your application. Unfortunately, that our family units are full, and our waiting list is currently 8 to 10 weeks. I can put you down for... Thank you. Lauren hung up. 8 to 10 weeks. She had 24 hours. Across the city, in an office that overlooked the skyline like a throne room, Gabriel Knox stood at the window, his phone pressed to his ear. Say that again. His voice was quiet, the kind of quiet that made men like Luca nervous. She refused the check, boss, tore it up, said she doesn't take blood money. And she's being evicted. 48 hours. Some landlord named Richard Thorne. She missed a job interview to save Mia. Lost the wah. Can't make rent. Gabriel's jaw tightened. The muscles in his neck went rigid. The woman who saved my daughter's life is being thrown out by a landlord? That's what I'm saying. Find out everything of Wang, her financials, her history, and this landlord. I want to know what company he works for, who owns it, and every dirty secret they're hiding. Luca knew that tone. Someone was about to have a very bad week. By Friday evening, a file sat on Gabriel's desk, 2 inches thick. Lauren Hayes, widow, former EMT, 1 son, age 10, husband killed in Afghanistan, 2019. Medical debt, $147,000. Bankruptcy filed, 2021. Current bank balance, $847. Current employment, part-time at Morrison's Diner, 11-hour. Total savings, $0. Gabriel flipped on to the next section. Richard Thorne, senior property manager, BlackRock Realty Holdings. 43 evictions in the last 18 months. 27 involve single mothers. 16 involve families with children under 12. Average time from first notice to forced removal, 14 days. BlackRock Realty, owned by Harrington Capital Group. Portfolio, 847 low-income housing units across the city. Profit margin, 34%. Legal complaints, 216. Settled out of court, 214. Gabriel read about the rent-eviction schemes, the forced evictions disguised as building improvements that never happened, the illegal rent hikes, the security deposits never returned, the threats, the bribes to city inspectors who looked the other way. He read about Mrs. Chen in Unit 3A, who had a stroke after receiving her eviction notice, about Marcus Williams's family in 1C who'd been locked out while the father was at work, their belongings thrown in the dumpster. Gabriel closed the file. Mia was alive because Lauren Hayes stopped, because she chose a stranger's life over her own stability, because she had a conscience, and men like Richard Thorne were destroying her for it. The affront was personal. Gabriel picked up his phone. Luca, prepare the helicopter. I'm going to meet Mrs. Hayes myself. Comment compassion over greed if you're not siding with landlords like Richard Thorne who destroy families for profit. Only people without hearts won't. The sound of rotor blades tore through the quiet Saturday afternoon like thunder. Lauren was in the kitchen, taping the last box shut, when the windows started rattling. The whole apartment shook. Jake ran to the window, his eyes going wide. "Mom, there's a helicopter!" Lauren's heart stopped. She moved to the window and looked out at the small public park that adjoined their building's yard. The helicopter was descending, black, sleek, expensive, the kind that didn't land in neighborhoods like this. The rotor wash sent trash and dead leaves spiraling into the air. A few neighbors stepped out onto their balconies, shielding their eyes, phones already recording. The helicopter touched down. The blades began to slow. The door opened. The man who stepped out wore a black suit, no tie, dark hair swept back, maybe 45. He moved with the kind of confidence that came from knowing every door opened for you. Every room went quiet when you entered. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and his face had the hard angles of someone who'd built an empire in fear and loyalty. Gabriel Knox. Lauren recognized him from the news. Everyone in the city knew that face. He walked across the park, through the chain-link fence someone had left open, straight toward her building. Luca followed 3 steps behind, scanning the area like a Secret Service agent. Lauren's pulse hammered. "Jake, go to your room." "But Mom, now." Jake disappeared down the hallway. Lauren opened the door before Gabriel could knock. He stopped on her doorstep, studying her with dark, unreadable eyes. "Mrs. Hayes, Mr. Knox, you saved my daughter's life. I did what anyone should have done. But you were the only one who did." His voice was low, controlled, dangerous. "Luca tells me you refused my money. I'd like to know why." Lauren crossed her arms, forcing herself to meet his gaze. "My morality isn't for sale, Mr. Knox. I wasn't buying it, I was thanking you." "With blood money?" Lauren's voice was steady despite the fear crawling up her spine. "I know who you are. I know where that money comes from. I saved a child because it was the right thing to do, not because I wanted a payoff from a crime boss." Something flickered in Gabriel's expression. Surprise, maybe, or respect. "You have principles." "I do. And where have those principles gotten you, Mrs. Hayes?" He glanced past her at the boxes stacked in the hallway. You're being evicted. You lost your job. You're 24 hours from being homeless with a child. All because you stopped to help someone. Lauren's throat tightened. That's not your problem. It is now. Gabriel stepped closer. The system that punishes people like you and rewards people like your landlord, that system is broken, and you're being destroyed by it. Lauren felt tears burning behind her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. So what? You're here to fix it? You think throwing money at me solves anything? No, Thom. Gabriel's expression hardened. I think you deserve justice. And I think men like Richard Thorne deserve to learn what happens when they prey on good people. Lauren stared at him. Why do you care? Because my daughter is alive. Because you chose her life over your own future. Because people like you shouldn't be punished for having a conscience. He paused. What do you want, Mrs. Hayes? I want my son to have a home. I want people like Thorne to stop destroying families. Her voice cracked. I want the system to stop winning. Gabriel Knox nodded slowly, something almost like a smile touching his lips. Then let me help you burn it down. Lauren took a breath, steadying herself. Gabriel Knox stood on her doorstep like a force of nature, waiting for her answer. Behind him, the helicopter's blades had gone silent, but the weight of his presence filled the space between them. I don't want your money, Mr. Knox. I don't want my apartment back as some kind of favor. Then what do you want? Lauren's voice hardened. I want Richard Thorne investigated. I want BlackRock Realty held accountable. They've been doing this for years, forcing out families, stealing deposits, targeting single mothers and the elderly. Mrs. Chen in 3A had a stroke when they evicted her. The Williams family in 1C came home to find their belongings in a dumpster. Her hands were shaking now, but not from fear, from rage. I want the system that protects people like Thorne and punishes people like me to be exposed for what it is. Gabriel studied her face, the exhaustion, the defiance, the absolute refusal to back down even when she had nothing left to lose. Then he smiled. It was a dangerous smile, the kind of smile that made prosecutors nervous and rival organizations disappear. You don't want mercy, Mrs. Hayes. You want justice. Real justice. Not a check that makes me shut up and go away. Then you'll have it. Gabriel pulled out his phone. Government agencies move slow. They get tangled in red tape, politics, legal loopholes. Men like Thorne know how to work the system because they own pieces of it. He looked up at her. But I can do this better, faster, and I can make sure it sticks. Lauren's heart hammered. How? By hitting them from both sides. Gabriel's thumb hovered over his screen. Legal and less legal. I'm not asking you to hurt anyone. I'm not going to. I'm going to destroy them with their own crimes. He raised the phone to his ear. Marcus, it's me. I need the full legal team mobilized by Monday morning. Target, BlackRock Realty Holdings, and Harrington Capital Group. Start with housing code violations, tax records, tenant complaints. I want a case built for a class action lawsuit that buries them. He paused, listening. Yes, all of it, everything. He ended the call and immediately dialed another number. Vincent, I need financials on Harrington Capital, shell companies, offshore accounts, who they're paying under the table, and I need their investors nervous by Monday. Very nervous. Another pause. Because they've been preying on families and I don't like it. Make some calls, the kind that remind people there are consequences. Gabriel pocketed his phone and looked at Lauren. By Monday morning, BlackRock Realty will have federal investigators, a class action lawsuit, and a dozen investors pulling their funding. By Wednesday, Richard Thorne will be answering questions he can't lie his way out of. By Friday, the company will be in receivership, and every family they've displaced will get their justice. Lauren's voice was barely a whisper. You can do all that? Mrs. Hayes, I can do far more than that. Gabriel's expression darkened. And I will, because men like Thorne think they're untouchable. It's time someone reminded them they're not. Hit subscribe if you believe people like Richard Thorne should face consequences for destroying families. Only people who side with bullies and slumlords won't. Monday morning, 8:47 a.m., Richard Thorne arrived at BlackRock Realty's downtown offices with his usual coffee and his usual arrogance. 3 unmarked black SUVs were parked in front of the building. Federal agents in windbreakers that read IRS and FBI were carrying boxes out of the lobby. Thorne's boss, Harold Harrington, was on the sidewalk in handcuffs, shouting about lawyers and constitutional rights while cameras flashed. Thorne's coffee hit the pavement. Mr. Richard Thorne, a woman in a dark suit approached, badge already out. Special Agent Lisa Chen, FBI Financial Crimes Division. We have questions about your eviction practices, fraudulent lease agreements, and misappropriation of tenant security and deposits. I don't know what We have 18 months of internal communications, Mr. Thorne, including emails where you refer to tenants as easy targets and security deposits as free revenue. You're coming with us. By noon, the story was breaking on every local news station. Federal investigators have raided BlackRock Realty Holdings in what sources are calling one of the largest housing fraud cases in the city's history. The company, which manages over 800 low-income housing units, is accused of systemic fraud, illegal evictions, and tax evasion. Lauren watched the news from her apartment, Jake sitting beside her on the couch, eyes wide. Mom, is that the man who was kicking us out? On screen, Richard Thorne was being led into a federal building, his face pale, his expensive suit suddenly looking like a costume. Yes, baby, that's him. By Tuesday afternoon, the lawsuit started dropping. Knox's legal team had built a case in 72 hours that would have taken the city attorney's office 2 years. Class action lawsuit on behalf of 183 families. Illegal evictions, withheld deposits, unsafe living conditions, harassment, fraud. The list went on for 47 pages. By Wednesday morning, Harrington Capital's investors were gone. Every single one. No explanations, just sudden synchronized exits. The kind of coordinated abandonment that didn't happen naturally. The kind that happened when someone like Gabriel Knox made phone calls. By Thursday, BlackRock Realty was in receivership. Federal marshals had seized the properties, including Lauren's building. All evictions were halted pending investigation. Lauren received an official letter at 3 p.m. United States District Court, Northern District, RE, Property Seizure and Tenant Protections. Dear Ms. Hayes, due to ongoing federal investigation, all eviction proceedings against you have been permanently halted. Your tenancy is protected under federal seizure protocols. Rent payments are suspended pending resolution of criminal proceedings against BlackRock Realty Holdings. Lauren read it 3 times. Her phone rang. Unknown number. Mrs. Hayes, this is Marcus Delgado from Knox Legal Group. Mr. Knox wanted you to know that Richard Thorne has been formally charged with 15 counts of fraud, 8 counts of extortion, and 23 counts of illegal eviction practices. He's looking at 12 to 18 years. Harrington is looking at more. Lauren's hand trembled. I don't understand. This happened so fast. Mr. Knox moves fast when he's motivated, Mrs. Hayes, and you motivated him. That evening, Jake asked if they still had to move. Lauren looked around their small apartment, the boxes, the worn furniture, the life they'd almost lost. No, baby, we get to stay. Because of the helicopter man? Lauren smiled, tears streaming down her face. Yeah, because of the helicopter man. Gabriel Knox returned exactly 1 week after the helicopter landed. This time, he drove. A black Mercedes, no entourage, no spectacle. Just a knock on Lauren's door at 7:30 on a Thursday evening. Jake was doing homework at the kitchen table when Lauren opened the door. Mr. Knox. Mrs. Hayes, may I come in? Lauren hesitated, then stepped aside. Gabriel entered, his presence somehow making the small apartment feel even smaller. He glanced at Jake, who was staring with wide eyes, then back at Lauren. Could we speak privately? Lauren nodded to Jake. Finish your math, sweetheart. I'll be right outside. They stepped into the hallway. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Down the corridor, Mrs. Chen was peeking through her door, eyes curious. Gabriel got straight to the point. Thorne is going to prison. Harrington too. BlackRock Realty is finished. Their assets are being liquidated to compensate the families they displaced. I saw the news. Good. Gabriel reached into his jacket and pulled out a folder. Now we talk about you. Lauren's guard went up immediately. I told you, I don't want... This isn't charity, Mrs. Hayes. It's a job offer. He opened the folder. I'm establishing a foundation. The Mafia Knox Community Outreach Foundation. Legitimate, fully legal, focused on supporting families in crisis, housing assistance, medical bills, emergency funds, the things that people like you needed and never got. Lauren stared at him. Why? Because my daughter is alive. Because you showed me that sometimes the people with the least still give the most. Because men like me need people like you to remind us what actually matters. He handed her the folder. I need someone to run it. Someone who understands what it's like to be on the edge. Someone who can't be bought. Lauren looked down at the papers. Director of Operations. Salary, $78,000 annually. Full benefits, housing stipend. Her throat tightened. This is real? The foundation launches in 3 weeks. Office space is already secured. Legal structure is clean. Every dollar is accounted for, every tax form filed. This isn't a front, Mrs. Hayes. It's legitimate. Gabriel's voice softened slightly. You'll have resources, protection, stability, everything you should have had before Thorne tried to destroy you. Why me? Because you tore up my check. Because you demanded justice instead of money. Because you're exactly the kind of person who should have power. He paused. And because people like Thorne are everywhere. This foundation gives you the tools to fight them. Lauren's hands shook as she held the folder. This was more than a tune. This was a shield, a way to become untouchable in a world that had spent years grinding her down. If I say yes, what does that make me? Part of your world? It makes you protected. It makes you powerful. It makes you someone who can actually change things instead of just surviving them. Lauren thought about Jake, about the eviction notice that had almost destroyed them, about Mrs. Chen and the Williams family and the 183 families in the lawsuit, about every person the system had chewed up and spit out. She thought about Richard Thorne in a federal holding cell. When do I start? Gabriel's expression didn't change, but something like satisfaction flickered in his eyes. Monday, 9 a.m. Luca will pick you up. I can drive myself. Not anymore, Mrs. Hayes. You work for me now. That means you're under my protection. And people under my protection don't take the bus. Lauren felt something shift inside her, a small crack in the foundation of the person she'd been. The woman who apologized for taking up space, who accepted the world's cruelty as inevitable. That woman was gone. Okay. Gabriel extended his hand. Lauren shook it. His grip was firm, certain, the handshake of someone who'd never doubted his place in the world. Now neither would she. 1 year later, Lauren Hayes walked into the offices of the Mafia Knox Community Outreach Foundation, wearing a tailored navy blazer, crisp white blouse, and the kind of confidence that came from knowing she could actually help people instead of just watching them drown. The foundation occupied the entire 3rd floor of a renovated building on Riverside Avenue, 3 blocks from where she'd found Mia bleeding on the sidewalk. The irony wasn't lost on her. Mrs. Hayes, the Ramirez family is here for their appointment. Her assistant, Jennifer, a former single mother Lauren had hired 6 months ago, handed her a file. Lauren reviewed it quickly. Eviction notice, medical debt, 2 kids, the same nightmare she'd lived through. Send them in. 20 minutes later, the Ramirez family left with a check that covered 3 months' rent, a referral to a pro bono attorney, and a promise that someone was finally on their side. Lauren had processed 47 cases like this in the past month alone. 47 families who wouldn't end up homeless. 47 lives changed because she'd stopped on a street corner a year ago. Her phone buzzed. A text from Gabriel. Dinner tonight? Mia wants to see you. Lauren smiled. Over the past year, a strange relationship had formed between them. Not quite friendship. You didn't become friends with men like Gabriel Knox, but something protective, codependent, built on mutual respect and the unspoken understanding that they'd saved each other in different ways. She typed back, 7 p.m. I'll be there. On her desk, a new drawing had arrived that morning, delivered by Luca, as always. Mia sent one every few weeks. This one showed a woman in a business suit standing next to a little girl, both of them smiling. At the bottom, in careful 12-year-old handwriting, "Thank you for saving me. Love, Mia." Lauren pinned it to the bulletin board next to the others. At 5:30, she packed her briefcase and walked to the window. From here, she could see the small public park where Gabriel's helicopter had landed. The grass had grown back. Kids were playing soccer. Life had returned to normal. But Lauren hadn't. She'd spent 32 years believing the system always won, that people like her were invisible, powerless, destined to be crushed by landlords and corporations and bureaucrats who valued policy over humanity. Then she'd made one choice, one impossible, irrational, selfless choice, and a mafia boss had landed a helicopter in her yard. Lauren had learned something that day, something that changed everything. An act of kindness could move mountains. It could topple companies, destroy careers, rewrite futures. But only when backed by the right kind of power. She'd saved Mia Knox's life. In return, Gabriel Knox had given her the one thing she'd never had, the ability to fight back. Now, families came to her foundation the way she'd once stood in Richard Thorne's office, desperate, terrified, out of options. And instead of being dismissed, they were heard, protected, saved. Richard Thorne was in year 3 of a 15-year sentence. BlackRock Realty was a case study in business schools about corporate fraud. Harrington Capital had dissolved. And Lauren Hayes ran a foundation that had helped over 500 families in 12 months. She picked up her briefcase and headed for the door. Luca would be waiting downstairs in the Mercedes. Dinner with the Knox family, another Thursday evening in her strange new life. As she locked her office, Lauren caught her reflection in the glass door. Tailored suit, confident posture. The kind of woman who walked into rooms and was immediately taken seriously. She barely recognized herself, but she liked who she'd become. The woman who'd torn up a blank check had become untouchable, and she was using that power exactly the way it should be used, to make sure no one else had to choose between saving a life and saving themselves. Do you think one act of kindness can change everything? Comment below and tell me about a time someone's compassion changed your life.